You got through week 1. I know day 2 through 4 was not easy for any of my coffee drinkers. That is always one of the hardest things. People think, oh, it's going to be the alcohol, it's going to be the sugar. It's the coffee that people really struggle with. So, I want to talk a little bit this morning about habit stacking and how we add a habit to things we're already doing. So, habit stacking is like this genius way of creating new habits. You take a habit you already do. Let me just use brushing your teeth, like brushing your teeth, for example. And you add a new habit. So you might add a stability move. So I love this because as we get older, stability, mobility, and flexibility are all things that we need to work on to continue to live younger, longer, and better. So if you want to habit stack a stability move, you're brushing your teeth, right? With your right hand, but you're standing on your left foot. So what this does, this is a bilateral move. You're using two different sides of your body in different ways. It's a mind-body connection. It creates a neural connection in your brain that helps you create this new habit, this new stability habit that's going to improve your balance. And then you switch your hand to your left hand. Just try brushing your teeth with your left hand if you're right-handed and standing on your right foot. So we all need to be, as we're getting older, doing more of these stability and mobility exercises because they benefit our body, but they also benefit our brain by creating these new neural connections. And, excuse me, it is so dry in my house. And as we get older, if we are one side dominant, so think about this. If you're right hand dominant and we become lazy, so we continually defer to our dominant hand, that left hand is just kind of like losing ability. We're using our right hand for everything. So that left hand is kind of getting a little weaker. We lose grip strength as we age anyway. So what you want to start doing is creating little exercises that work to help you keep your strength in the things you use the most, like your hands. So try using your left hand to brush your teeth. Try using your left hand when you're, blow drying your hair. What your non-dominant hand. Try eating with your non-dominant hand. These are all really important things. When my daughter was in middle school, I coached her lacrosse team. And one of the things that we used to have the girls do was play with their non-dominant hand. And the way we did that was just what I'm telling you now. We had them start to brush their teeth with their non-dominant hand, eat with their non-dominant hand. And you think I'm sitting here and that sounds like kind of silly, but I'm here to tell you part of what this program is about is helping you live younger, longer, and better. And it's all of your habits, not just what you eat and drink. We become lazy. Habits are 43% of what we do every day. We don't think, we just do. So we want to start creating habits that stimulate our brain in a beneficial way and keep our body strong. So I'm a grandparent, and I want to tell you, I did a post yesterday or 2 days ago about grip strength, and you can use a tennis ball. So guys, just get a can of tennis balls, and when you're watching TV, hold the tennis balls in your hand and just squeeze them. Okay? So this is another way to habit stack. You're watching TV, but you're using these tennis balls to create more grip strength in your hands. So if you've ever had trouble opening a jar, and you're like, oh, you're handing that to your, your daughter or your son-in-law or your husband. It's because we're losing grip strength as we get older. So we want to keep our grip strength. We want to do bilateral exercises where we use the opposite sides of our body. And these are things that we can just add on to what we're doing. Okay. So think about that this week. Start using your non dominant hand more and try eating a meal with your non dominant hand. And I'll tell you why. It's going to slow you down. So that's another part of this program. And today I am going to be talking about how to eat. So, what we eat is important, and it's so important. It's about 80% of our wellness equation. So, you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. Now, how we eat gets overlooked all the time. And unless you grew up in a home where your parents or grandparents were really sticklers about teaching you how to eat, you maybe didn't learn a lot of this stuff. So, the first tip is chewing. And I know that a lot of you, every time I do this program, I'm like, it's not a diet, but everybody does lose weight on this program from the inflammation. Oh, and here's another thing, do not step on the scale. Nobody is allowed to step on the scale until we are after day 21. Okay. No, no cheating, no stepping on the scale. If you've already done it, put it away. No stepping on the scale because this isn't about losing weight, it's about gaining nutrition. All right, so we're chewing. We're going to chew each bite of food 23 to 32 times. 32 is the optimal amount of chews to chew your food. Now, my husband grew up in a household, my mother-in-law, bless her heart, she was a okay cook. She was a good enough cook, okay? Nice Catholic family, 4 kids. She made enough food for dinner with maybe a little bit of leftovers. Well, there were 3 boys and 1 girl in that family. And what they figured out was you had to eat really fast if you wanted to get any seconds. And then my husband went into the army, and in the army, you eat fast too. So eating fast was this, thing my husband learned as a kid, and then it became a habit when he got in the army. Well, then my husband got reflux. So I had to do a deep dive on reflux. I didn't want him to take proton pump inhibitors. That's the things like Nexium and those medications for people who have reflux. So I did a deep dive, and what I learned was most of us are eating incorrectly. We're eating too fast. We're washing our food down with liquids. Um, we're not really enjoying our meals. We're eating in our cars. We're eating in front of our computers. So, in this program, if you only take one thing away from today's session, it is slow down and chew your food. Chewing is the first part of digestion. It's where the digestion process begins. It begins in your mouth with chewing. That is where you secrete digestive enzymes that begin to break down your food. The more you chew your food, the more broken down it gets, the more bioavailable the nutrients are. So that means your body can then absorb the nutrients from your food more readily. Now, if you don't chew your food enough, and I still have to say stuff to my husband like, hey, slow down. It took me a long time to cook that food. Like, you should at least take as long to enjoy it. The other thing that people do is they use liquids. So, a lot of families had a big glass of milk or water at the table. And here's the deal. You don't want to drink liquids with meals because what liquids do, they do 2 things. They dilute the digestive enzymes that are so important for digesting our food. They also allow us to use the water to wash down food that we haven't chewed properly. So it's kind of a way of cheating when we're like just taking 5 bites and then we're like taking a big swig of a liquid and we're washing our food down. So, what happens when you wash the food down and it's not broken down properly is your gut has to create more acid to break the food down. And that's where the reflux comes from. Reflux is when that stomach acid starts to come up your it comes back up basically and into your throat. The stomach acid does, and it can create an irritation. And if it goes on long enough, it can create something called Barrett's esophagus, which is a precancerous condition. So, all of this, my husband does not take any sort of, you know, proton pump inhibitors because I didn't want him to, because my study showed that proton pump inhibitors were developed to be taken for 2 weeks to relieve the symptoms of for people who had reflux. Now, of course, we live in an allopathic medical system where we treat the symptoms. We don't treat the root cause. The root cause is bad eating habits and eating highly processed foods, foods without enough fiber, not chewing our food, and interrupting the digestive process with too many liquids. So those proton pump inhibitors were supposed to be taken for 2 weeks to relieve the symptoms for people with reflux. And guess what? The pharmaceutical company figured out, hey, if we make this a maintenance medication and tell people to take it every day, we can really, that's a very profitable way to grow our business. And so people who have to take proton pump, who have been taking proton pump inhibitors, and I know this only too well because we have a very good friend who used to be a sales rep for one of those companies. He himself had such bad habits. He had created Barrett's esophagus, so that's a lifestyle disease. And after doing this program, he was able to improve his symptoms by 70% and get off his medication. So it is very doable, but for everybody here, if you want to lose a few pounds, this is your first step. So slow down and chew your food. Don't drink liquids with meals and stop eating when you're about 80% full. And if you're eating fast, you have no idea what 80% full is. So when you slow down and you're chewing and you're taking your time and you're really savoring your food, you're going to start to have a better sense of when you're about 80% full. And why do we do this? We do this because you're really 100% full. It's just your satiety, your sense of fullness hasn't caught up with your eating. So it's a really interesting phenomenon with the whole how we end up eating more food than we need, overeating late in the day. And by simply chewing our food, by slowing down, by not drinking liquids with meals, by stopping before we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so full, I couldn't eat another bite, that's going to help us have a better sense um, of fullness, and you're really going to enjoy your food more.